Hello.
Sir, good afternoon, all of you.
Welcome, honorable speakers, ladies and gentlemen. I, Mr. Rudra Narayan Das, on behalf of the organizers, extend my heartfelt welcome to all of you to this international conclave. This Ranjitguru series of international webinar is an initiative by the Department of History and Political Science, Jawaharlal Nehru College, Cuttack, in a close collaboration with Center for Adivasi Research and Development Studies, Odisha. I feel happy to express that we have successfully concluded the 103rd round of panel discussion soon. In today's session, I feel extremely honored to introduce our guest speakers, who are none other than Professor Harihar Panda, Professor Prafula Mohanty, Professor Bikrarm Mohapatro, and Professor Subas Barik ji. It's a pride privilege to host all of you, sir. The broad theme of our international webinar is kept as Initiative Policy Dialogue 2020, COVID-19, and Life Practice Beyond Pandemic. Thank you. Now, I would like to invite the head of the Department of History and the convener of this webinar, Professor Sarath Pradhan, to initiate a brief welcome address. Over to you, Professor Pradhan.
Thanks, Rudra Narayan, inviting me for welcome address. Distinguished participants, honorable guests, and friends from the media, good afternoon and welcome to today's international discourses. During this unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, this online conference is a step towards continuing study and thinking of teachers and students. The Ranjitguru Memorial Series of International Conclaves has successfully completed 103rd sessions in an empathetic way. We have had some of the best academic, activists, policymakers, journalists, judicial luminaries, and intellectual minds from across the globe, belong to a wide range of academic fields and domains, sharing their valuable insights on contemporary subjects to provide and unpack the complexities embedded in a post-pandemic world. And this has been a commendable and a tremendous success for everyone concerned with this noble initiative led by Dr. Bikrarm Jana, Director, Center for Adivasi Research and Development. This whole initiative has been a brainchild of Dr. Jana, who truly believes in dreaming and big, and he wanted to ensure that students from small villages coming from interior and rural areas of Odisha get the hear some of the most illustrious, influential minds. Rightly mentioned by our mentor, if a problem arises, engage yourself in read, writing, speak, and listen. The art of avoid all problems. This pandemic also not empathetically impacting us due to the critically embrace our knowledge to conducting the marathon webinar series. and he is assured that this whole exercise will help the young mind to aspire and dream big. This has been the small sole purposes behind initiating these events. Once again, we thank each and every stakeholders of this platform for their support, motivations, and encouragement, without which we would not have been able to reach in this stage. Hence, it is a remarkable occasion for us and landmark to have our esteemed guest, Dr. Harihar Panda, Professor, National Defense Academy, Pune, a distinguished educationalist as a resource person for the 104th Cyber Platform discussion of Ranjitguru Memorial Series of International Webinar. Sir, teachers and students community feel greatly honored and join me in sharing the pleasure of having with us and express their gratitude. On their behalf and on my own, I welcome you, sir, with a great reverence and highest admiration on this occasion. I take an opportunity to welcome Professor Prafula Kumar Mohanty, ex-president, Odisha History Congress, an outstanding professor of history, an academician and humanist. Another eminent scholar is Professor Bikrarm Mohapatro, President Itihasa Odisha Itihasa Sankalana, Bhubaneswar, a distinguished academician, also our inspiration in many ways. His love for the students is another one. It is my pleasure to welcome Professor Subas Kumar Barik, Secretary Odisha History Congress, a student-friendly professional personality, believe on unity and organization, and an inspiration to the students and to the scholars and the students. All our speakers are a mix of academicians, serving professors, and domain experts. It is not wise to waste time. Rather, let all of us stay tuned to listen to our eminent speakers. The today topic is Ashoka's Kalinga War, a controversial chapter of Odisha history, formation of ancient Odisha state, problems in history writing. We anticipate a beautiful analysis from our resource persons. Thank you everybody once again for giving me a patient hearing. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Professor Pradhan, for a brief welcome address. Now, I am feeling privileged to go for a guest introduction. The most influential and significant historical character. The man becomes such fabulous students of history from Ravensa, even produced by the leading prestigious college, then now university, a genuine student-friendly teacher amongst the audience of history and the fraternity of young and professional teachers. Besides that, he was a noted alumni of Kurukshetra University, Haryana. His most remarkable achievements is he put it war history in the National Defense Academy, once pioneering contributions of his towards national academics and history as well. we proudly, today we have the man himself, Professor Harihar Panda. Welcome you, sir. The second speaker is none other than the ex-president of the Odisha History Congress and noted history come archaeological researcher for more than 4 decades in the history of Odisha. His humble and kindness toward the discipline should be remembered for a long time. He completed his all higher degrees from Utkal University of Odisha. He is the Professor Prafula Kumar Mohanty. Welcome you, sir. The third guest speaker is no need any introduction, one of the most influential organizers of history and the battle force, who leads the guides and the chief of Odisha branch of Bharatiya Itihas Sankalan Samiti. His inspiration always tremendous to celebrate his own capacity of encourage young minds of Odisha to think seriously, think about truth. He is Professor Bikrarm Kesari Mohapatro, the president of Itihas Sankalan Samiti Odisha. We heartily welcome you, sir. The last but not the least, the family man of this fraternity, which pronounced history without saying his role, and an individual he contributed the Odisha History Congress, the think tanks of Odisha beyond demographic dividends, and the man who guided more than 100 PhD scholars across the country non-officially, and the founder of the PG Department of History in VN Autonomous College, Jajpur. One of close friend of every history lovers, he is Professor Subas Chandra Barik, the great secretary of Odisha History Congress. Welcome you all. The world's only marathon webinar series of Ranjitguru Memorial International, very popular, so certified by YouTube last globally challenged in last globally challenged pandemic, not touched. This series we have playing instrumental role in the rural Odisha to connecting the global academic leaders across the globe to think seriously about plans, policies, network, and agenda for new horizontal and pioneering development around the party line across the border. Made us different in field of knowledge and wisdom. Every spheres of life we need solid research to overcome from tragic thought strategy. We really taking credit for the success of more significant contributions toward the academic and policy episteme dialogue initiative for grassroots by Jawaharlal Nehru College and Center for Adivasi Research and Development to think beyond imagination. That's the mantra of success. Now, I would like to stop my mouth here and welcome the great Professor Harihar Panda to initiate his talk. Over to you, Professor Panda. Sir, your topic is suggested by you. It's Ashoka's Kalinga War, a controversial chapter of Odisha history. Over to you, Professor Panda. Hello, Harihar Panda, sir. Please start your talk, sir. Professor Panda, please unmute yourself and start your talk. Hello, can you hear us, Professor Panda?
Sir, Professor Panda sir join करनांती group रे.
हाँ, now I think I am audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, audible. Sir, good evening, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Esteemed Professor Pallab Chakraborty, Principal Jawaharlal Nehru College, dear Bikrarm, Director CARD, and Professor Sharad Chandra Pradhan, Head Department of History, the convener, Shubham Das, Head Political Science Department and Coordinator, dear Rudra Narayan Das and Payal Agrawal, coordinators of the seminar, and my co-participants, Professor Dr. P.K. Mohanty, Professor Dr. Subas Kumar Barik, and Professor Bikrarm Kesari Mohapatro, and distinguished scholars and participants in the seminar. A hearty good afternoon from National Defence Academy, Pune. Now, in this international webinar, the topic is on which I have to deliver a talk is Ashoka's Kalinga War, a controversial chapter of Odisha history. Why I tell? Because on Kalinga War, many professors have given their suggestions, given their verdicts in a different way. But being son of the soil, when I read Kalinga War and looked it from a different perspective, it came to my mind that it should be restudied, revisited, and reanalyzed. That's why the attempt. Now I begin my talk. Magadhan imperialism, which really started with Bimbisara's conquest of Anga, that ended with Ashoka's Kalinga War. During the interregnum between the Nandas and the Mauryas, the Kalingas slipped away from the fold of Magadhan imperialism. Chandragupta Maurya, who rose from the abysmal depth of obscurity to be an unrivaled Indian monarch, who for the first time united India under one umbrella of Magadhan imperialism and conquered many territories, however, left Kalingans intact. So for Ashoka, as Bindusara was a pacifist, it became a historic necessity to conquer Kalinga from the political point of view. Now, the only war, that Kalinga War, Ashoka fought in 261 BCE, made him popular not only in the checkered annals of India, but across the globe. That prompted Professor H.G. Wells to comment amidst tens and thousands of kings that crowd the column of Indian history, the name of Ashoka shines almost as a star. But however, this stardom for which Ashoka is acclaimed is to be taken with a pinch of salt from our point of view. Let us analyze in a dispassionate manner Ashoka's Kalinga War and the facts associated with it. Coming to the causes, if we can say it is a political cause, I am not analyzing it in that manner, but just giving just reference to introduce the topic. That fear of a conspiracy against Magadha by a tiny small kingdom on the border like Kalinga, by forging alliance with the Cheras, Cholas, Pandyas, Satyaputras, which can give a potent threat to Ashoka and particularly Magadhan imperialism. And this idea haunted the body, mind and soul of Ashoka time and again, for which he wanted to cross sword with Kalinga. Furthermore, besides this political cause, a fear psychosis, which we will later discuss also, what Professor Hemchandra Rai Chaudhary had commented, we find the economic and commercial causes were quite relevant, because although Magadha had a surplus production, but it could not be appropriated because the lack of markets and the lack of say access to trade routes. If we analyze the situation of that period, we will find that all the trade routes from north to south and vice versa passed through Kalinga, not Magadha. And not only that, but the prosperity earned by Kalinga through overseas trade became an eyesore to Magadha's prosperity. So that is why when we find that Magadha had no access to sea, Kalinga traded overseas with the countries like Sri Lanka, Java, Sumatra, and earned wealth and became prosperous and rather basked in the golden glow of prosperity. It really haunted Ashoka a lot, and that is why he thought that he should attack Kalinga. Very peculiar thing, basing on the description of Lama Taranath, a Buddhist monk, Professor Egermont had advocated a Naga theory, that once by chance Ashoka had been to sea, just to have an access, because they had no access to the sea, and somehow or other he had wanted to, he had come rather to have a round in the sea, but he was looted by the Nagas. And historians, after discussion, including P.H.L. Egermont, they all say that these Nagas can be compared with the seafaring people of Kalinga who looted Ashoka's jewelry. And that became a cause for Ashoka's invasion. Another thing I should discuss here, that the anecdote regarding Karubaki, which has created storms in the historical discussion, not only in Odisha but across the country among historians. That the story, as we all know, Karubaki was the daughter of head of a fisherman community and was the fiancée of the Prince of Kalinga. And that marriage was to be solemnized. But however, Paras, after facing discomfiture at the hand of the Nagas or the seafaring people of Kalinga, when Ashoka by chance returning and had a chance to eye Karubaki, he was infatuated by the paragon of her beauty. And that may be a reason for many were not accepting it. But if we think in the past, this for ladies, many wars have been fought. That cannot be an exception. That we cannot escape that cardinal desire of Ashoka to marry Karubaki, the beautiful lady. Because if we analyze the past, we will see that how this Chandragupta II had to fight with the Shaka ruler Rudrasimha III, who wanted to take away wife Dhruva Devi of his elder brother Ramagupta. And similarly, Alauddin Khilji had chance to see Padmini, and for her a war was fought between Rana Ratan Singh. Examples can be multiplied, and if we cast our glance on the epics, we better know that Mahabharata and Ramayana, the wars were only fought for ladies. So we cannot just relegate this to distant background. And many were disagreeing regarding this Karubaki, which was a legend, and were trying to bypass it, not just to mention it as a cause of Kalinga's war. For a long time, it was not accepted. But however, with the discovery of Queen's Edict from Allahabad, a fact is mentioned there that Karubaki, the mother of Tiboro, should be given much more money from the royal exchequer in comparison to other queens. Is this not suggestive that Karubaki existed in form and content, and the legend or the anecdote which is prevalent in the nook and corner of Odisha in the coastal belt among the fishermen communities is not far from true? Be that as it may, Ashoka had to attack Kalinga after 8th year of his coronation, and as we all know, the war took place in 261 BCE, and Rock Edict 13 gives a graphic description about the casualties of the Kalinga War. The people who took arms in the war from the side of Kalinga, among them 1 lakh people were killed, 1.5 were taken as prisoners to work in the field there at Magadha, and the same number, this 1 plus 1.25 is 25, and so 2.5 people also perished in the aftermath of war. They lost their leg, eye, this and that, and a very torturous life they led, having no meaning. So, be that as it may, as the saying goes on, seeing all these death and deportation, all these things, Ashoka changed his heart. He threw the dagger into river Maya and uttered, conquest by sword is not the real conquest. Conquest of human heart is the real conquest. Let us see how far he tried to win human hearts. But this was some of the things that Devanam Piyadasya Ashoka Eva Maha, he had told like this at the end. And after after making this brief mention about Ashoka's Kalinga War, let us have an in-depth analysis on this topic. That how far the analysis leads us to. Now, we will analyze this Ashoka's Kalinga War as depicted in the Rock Edict 13 for 4 points. First, we will describe or discuss the find spot of this Rock Edict 13. Second, we will discuss the population of Kalinga from the demographic point of view. The third one, we will discuss the nature of polity that Kalinga did have by that time. Whether monarchical system existed or republicanism was a part of the administration of Kalinga, that is to be taken into account. And the myth pertaining to the paternalistic concept of kingship, what Ashoka exhibited in his separate Kalinga edicts, one at Dhauli and another at Jaugarh for the people of Kalinga. So how far these things are true or far from truth, or in the middle, somehow or other, we have to reach a conclusion at the end after analyzing all these facts. Now coming to the find spots. What is the nature and characteristics to determine the find spot of Ashoka's edicts? Wherever Ashoka has gone, Ashoka, wherever in particular occasion, he has installed the edicts. One example I shall cite: when he visited Lumbini, Rumindai, he installed there, and what was the inscription? What was written there? That tax was reduced from 1/6 to 1/8. So he went to Sarnath and many places. Wherever he has gone, he has put the edict there, and with a specific purpose which has been mentioned in that edict. Now, very often when I teach this work here in the academy, and also there in 2 universities like Ravensa and GM, which has become by that time they were colleges, I very often ask to the student in a funny manner, my dear friends, please tell where is this Rock Edict 13 is there from which we know about Ashoka's Kalinga War? Without any hesitation, the students will say, sorry, it is in Kalinga. In fact, obvious. But that is the irony of the fact that Kalinga War was fought in Kalinga. But 2 separate edicts were established, installed in Kalinga. but not Rock Edict 13, which describes about Ashoka's Kalinga War. It was not installed in Odisha. The find spot of that inscription is Shahbaz Gadi, now in Pakistan and on the Pak-Afghan border. That is the find spot of Rock Edict 13, where this ferociousness or ferocity of the Kalinga War, or this sanguinary Kalinga War rather, has been described. Now, what is mentioned there? As I told, the casualties. So up to the 5 lakhs of people totally destroyed, those who took arms in this. Furthermore, that edict also describes Ashoka's relation with the notable kings of the war, like Antiochus, like Philadelphus, Ptolemy, Magas, all these high-sounding names of the kings, which who were very famous by that time, and they were recorded stalwarts of their time, as they were the brilliant epitome of their age. Now, not only that, many big countries like Greece, Rome, Crete, all the names of the countries have been mentioned there. What was the purpose? What was the purpose? And why it was installed there? Kalinga War was fought here. Everywhere Ashoka has installed wherever he visited the place. And exceptionally, this Rock Edict 30 is there. And the find spot, what was there? That edict was facing towards Afghanistan. What was the purpose? Was it not to create steers among the enemies? The enemies will come. They will read. So much people were dead. So much taken prisoners. Will after that they think to cross sword with Ashoka? Or as in parade ground here in academy, I often tell the students, the enemy will think that piche mood, tech chal. So let us move away from this place to save our life. Because we should not cross sword with such a stalwart who has created such a sanguinary battle and given a proof in this inscription. Let us ponder over. Let us ponder over. This is not the only one thing that the aspects related with the Kalinga War is to be proven or disproven. It is one aspect that we discussed here for the first time. Never before, and perhaps never after in the checkered annals of history, a wrong message has been inscribed in this inscription. How? In a subsequent discussion, I am going to justify it. Now, coming to the demographic point of view, the study of population, as it is known, we will discuss that what is the casualties in toto. Now we discussed 5 lakhs. So if 5 lakhs people, those who took arms in the battle, suffered this fate, what about their grandparents, their wives, their children, those who had not taken arms? And then population of Odisha, if by that time of Kalinga, a part of only, not Utkala or Kongodo or nothing else, simply Kalinga, a part of it, and where only 25% or 20% people participated. Because 70 or 75% land were Ottoman kingdom, where people did not take arms against Ashoka. I shall be coming very quickly to discuss that one also. But 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs people in this 25% of territory of Kalinga, some 2000 or more years back, is it possible? From demographic point of view, if we consider or take into consideration. I have seen historians, including Professor Romila Thapa, they have taken an armchair approach to history, sitting there in the ivory tower and writing the things. But a gross reality, as the son of the soil, I have felt in analyzing Ashoka's Kalinga War, that many untruths have been presented in the description. From demographic point of view, if we consider that it is never possible, what to say? When Odisha became a separate province in 1936, so much of population never existed. And if that did not exist in 1936 with so much inclusion, by the time in that remote phase of history, is such population possible? But Ashoka mentioned it. Ashoka mentioned it. Whatever the purpose, we will know later on, but Ashoka has mentioned it for the first time. Untruth has been presented in an inscription very cautiously. Now, I had already told that Ottovico Kingdom people, they did not participate in this. They never took part in it. They never participated in it. We will be discussing it when we will be discussing this nature of kingship just in this point. Now I am going to discuss this nature of kingship. Now a question connected with this Kalinga War can be analyzed. So what was the nature of state in Kalinga when Ashoka invaded it? Now, whether it was a republican territory or it had a monarchical setup, here I was talking of. Although historians like Professor Hemchandra Rai Chaudhuri, R.S. Tripathi, N.N. Ghosh, R.K. Mukherjee, D.R. Bhandarkar, Romila Thapar, all of them and many others have discussed about Kalinga War, they have not taken up this aspect for serious historical analysis. Now let us ponder over it. Now, is there any possibility of existence of a republicanism in Kalinga during that period? Let us analyze it. The possibility. Not saying that republicanism was there, but the possibility. Separate rock edit second, Ashoka states there, Avisitam Vijinitam, the unconquered Ottovico people after conquering Kalinga on the border may ask, what is the policy of king towards us? They should be made to understand that they should not be worried. They should not be worried because of Devanam Piyo. They should deserve consolation from him and get happiness and no sorrow. Is the description. Now, when in Rocket second Chaugod Ashoka gives this description, so this gives a clue that Kalinga was not conquered by Ashoka. Right from the days of Kautilya, as per the dictum of Arthashastra, Vedaniti, dissension, was to be followed by a king at the time of peril. So here Ashoka, who was anticipating that these Kalingans can be a potent threat, he followed a Vedaniti, divide and rule, what the Britishers also followed. What he did? He told for these people of Kalinga, their side, the Ottovico kingdom stretching up to Fulbani and this area, the jungles, that you need not be worried. You don't bother, I will not take any say action against you. Is it not the suggestive that people of various kinds, they lived and contributed in their own way what is found in the contemporary India in 6th century BC as the Lichavis, the Mauryas, the Bhankas, and many of them, the Chedis. It is not. The Republican form of government, what they were doing, that people of different sects were sending representatives, and they were contributing in different parts. Here, these Otobiko people, about whom shortly I shall be discussing the view of Professor Rai Chaudhary, that they were known as Kalingai, as Pliny, the classical writer, has mentioned, that they should not be fearful of Ashoka. So they were forming the militia. We have discussed about P.H.L. Agarwal's Naga theory, that they were the seafaring people looking after this. And a similar manner, examples can be multiplied. Many people were looking after many things, and they were sending their representatives. Rock Edict 13 itself gives a clue for this. Since there was not a particular leader of Kalinga, Ashoka had not mentioned the particular head of Kalinga. This is suggestive of the fact that there was some sort of republican experiment or republican form of government in Kalinga, where different rulers ruled at a point of time. Possibility I am talking of, that we can analyze. No analysis has been made, but these are the clues to analyze this. But however, this fact of existing of a republican form of a government should be taken with a pinch of salt, should be analyzed critically. Let us see what was the history of Kalinga in the past. Right from the days of Mohabharata, or painted grey were fades from 1500 to 1300 BCE. Till the 6th century BCE, monarchy was the prevalent form of government in Kalinga. In Vayu, Matsya, Brahmanda and other Puranas, they mention that during this period, the Kurus, Mithilas, Surasenas, and Brihadrathas, Ikshvakus, and Bhitihotras, etc., were very important dynasties. And the dynastic list of every Purana, because I am not taking any other aspects, because we all know that only that dynastic part of Purana is to be taken into account, although it has 5 parts: Sargascha, Pratisargascha, Sarpamanvantarani cha, Vangshamanvantarani cha, Vangshanucharitam chaiva Puranam Panchalakshmanam. That Vangshanucharitam, only dynastic history. From this we know that 30 Kshatriya kings, 32 Kshatriya kings, who were contemporary of the above dynasties, ruled over Kalinga from the time of this Mahabharata period till 6th century BC. Further, the Mahagovinda Suttanta of Digha Nikaya very well describes Kalinga as one of the monarchical states with 6 other contemporary states like Ashoka, Avanti, Sobira, Videha, Anga, and Kasi. King Satabhu of Kalinga was a contemporary of the rulers of these kingdoms. Thus, from Mahabharata war till 6th century BCE and till further up to Mahapadmananda, monarchy existed in Kalinga for a short intergram, say between the slipping of the Chandragupta Maurya and the slipping of the Kalinga from the pole. This republican experiment, there is a remote possibility. It is definite thus that monarchy was a prevalent form of government during Ashoka's invasion. Now let us analyze the view of Professor Hemchandra Rai Chaudhary, who discusses by quoting the lines of Pliny. I quote: "The tribes called Kalingae are nearest to the sea. Over their king, 60,000 foot soldiers, 1,000 horsemen, 700 elephants keep watch and ward in precinct of war." Unquote. From this description, Rai Chaudhary thinks that the increase of Kalingan army might have created stir in the mind of the people of Magadha, and Kalinga, described by Pliny, must have been the subjects of the king of Kalinga. Thus, monarchy was undoubtedly a prevalent form of government during that time. Then question arises that why didn't Ashoka mention the name of the king of Kalinga in Rock Edict 13, where he has mentioned about veteran kings of the world? Now, a plausible reply can be given to this. Shadowy figure. The king of Kalinga was a shadowy figure, and it would have been a mismatch to put his name there, because Kalinga was not such a great country, and the king was also not very popular. So putting their name amidst all such great kings would have hampered the prestige of Ashoka. And that is why very cautiously, very consciously, he had avoided putting the name of the king of Kalinga in Rock Edict 13, which has become an enigma in the history of ancient India. Because the students very often puzzle the teacher by asking this question, sir or ma'am, who was the king of Kalinga when it was attacked? The answer nobody can give, because the source is silent. And without source in ancient Indian history, we cannot just march a step ahead. So now, it is a fact that Ashoka had conquered the land, no doubt, but no such causality or no such great king existed by that time. The people they took arm and were in the sight of the king, fought, were defeated, and so. Just to highlight it, I will tell what was the obvious motive behind India. Not only on the one hand to silence the outsiders, on the other what, I will tell just after this. Now let us discuss the fourth point. I know time is short and I have a preoccupation after say half an hour. So I have to finish it within 5 to 10 minutes. I am trying. Now, the paternalistic concept of kingship, what Ashoka projected through these two separate Kalinga edicts, is to be analyzed. In separate Kalinga edict, he states, Saba Manishe Paja Mama, all men or subjects are my children. As I desire bliss and happiness for my children in this world and the other, so also I desire the same for my subjects. In the Holy Edict, he also states, see, here is a paternalistic concept of kingship, that I am your father figure. On the other hand, the cruelty is quivering from another description of Ashoka. Kindly note this. In the affairs of administration, in the Holy Edict, Ashoka is writing, in the affairs of administration, there might be persons who would suffer imprisonment or coercion. In that also might occur accidental death in prison, and many might also heavily suffer. Blowing hot and blowing cold. In the first edict, very cold, and here blow hot. Swing that here is a king to punish you, on the other hand. Further, in the same edict, he writes, I would be sending on quinquennial tours the Mohapatros, who would not be harsh and would be soft and gentle in dealing. See, where is the paternalistic concept of Ashoka, who considers that all these men are subjects are like children? So here, Ashoka did create fear psychosis in the body, mind and soul of the people of Kalinga, so that out and out they will be fearful. Because as we all know, Kalinga became the fifth province after its annexation, where he followed Vedaniti with the Ottomans, appeased them, and here giving threatening indirectly to the people, never raise voice. What he also did, you see. What is in the Rock Edict 13? What he did, placing there on Pak-Afghan border, created fear psychosis among the foreign invaders that never try to cross the border and give a fight me. Internally, by appointing Dhamma Mohamatros, Rajukos, Pradeshikos, and Vyaktos, what he did, he created undeclared 144. Means Samajo was banned, social gathering was banned. These moral preceptors, the Dhamma Mohapatros, they will visit place to place and will tell, follow these principles, Pitari, Matari, Susrusa, Gurunam, Opachiti, Anarambho, Praninam, Aviso, Bhutanam, and leave this cruelty, that Chamudiye, Nithuliye, all these things. So, outside, Ashoka is free from external aggression. Inside, Ashoka is a father figure, preaching Buddhism, appointing Dhamma Mohapatros, indoctrinating people with moral, ethical codes of conduct. And no chance of internal rebellion, no chance of external aggression. What was then? Ashoka put every sort of effort and acted every time a king. This was an outward show, all these activities. Ashoka was a king, everywhere a king, every time a king, anywhere a king, any time a king, every inch a king. His iron hands were visible under velvet clothes. And he created this aura among the people that I am your father figure, but I am doing all sorts of things for you. But he enjoyed the fruit of the conquest of his grandfathers and made his life, say, lovable, and enjoyed the life as a king every time, every inch, as I told. So, Ashoka's Kalinga War was an enigma, a very controversial chapter, not only in the history of Odisha, but also in the history of India. By projecting a false thing in Rock Edict 13, which is never possible from demographic point of view either, or if we take the territorial extent of Kalinga during that period, leaving 75%, even if this 75% is included, not possible. So this was some sort of, say, Ashoka's creation, a myth that he projected in the Rock Edict 13. He checked foreign aggression, he quelled internal rebellion, he showed a paternalistic concept of kingship before the people of Kalinga and enjoyed his life. This Kalinga war, the only war which he fought, which made him famous in the checkered annals of history, also gave him scope to enjoy the life like a king. He lived like a king size. Thank you, friends, for your patient hearing and giving me chance to keep my view in a very synoptic manner. Although much more discussion would have been made on this, there are other my revered seniors to deliver talk. And as I had already told, I have a preoccupation, so I am just putting an end to the discussion. So with this, I remain thanking you all. Enjoy your time and other speeches. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful deliberation on the history of Odisha and the conquest of Kalinga War and the modern administration, etc. It's absolutely delightful to hear you. Then now I would like to invite Professor Barik to initiate his talk. Professor Subas Barik.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Audible. धन्यवाद, शुभ संध्या. ଯେତେବେଳେ ସମଗ୍ର ବିଶ୍ୱ କରୋନା ପାଣ୍ଡେମିକରେ କବଳିତ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ସମଗ୍ର ବିଶ୍ୱରେ ଭୟ ଆତଙ୍କର ବାତାବରଣ ଖେଳି ଯାଇଛି, ସେଭଳି ଏକ ଘଡ଼ିସନ୍ଧି ମୁହୂର୍ତ୍ତରେ ଜବାହରଲାଲ ନେହେରୁ ମହାବିଦ୍ୟାଳୟ କୁଆଁପାଳର ଏହି 100ତମ ସେମିନାର ନିହାତି କ୍ରମେ ଅତି ମାତ୍ରାରେ ଆନନ୍ଦ ଦେଇଛି ଏବଂ ଏହା ମଧ୍ୟ ଏକ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ବହନ କରୁଛି। ଯେତେବେଳେ ସର୍ବପ୍ରଥମେ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ ଦେବି କୁଆଁପାଳ ମହାବିଦ୍ୟାଳୟର ଅଧ୍ୟକ୍ଷ ପଲ୍ଲବ କୁମାର ଚକ୍ରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ମହୋଦୟଙ୍କୁ, ଇତିହାସ ବିଭାଗର ମୁଖ୍ୟ ଶରତ ପ୍ରଧାନଙ୍କୁ ଏବଂ ଶୁଭମ ଦାସଙ୍କୁ, ରାଜନୀତି ବିଭାଗ ମୁଖ୍ୟଙ୍କୁ, ଡକ୍ଟର ବିକ୍ରମ କେଶରୀ ଜେନା ଯିଏକି ଏହି ଆୟୋଜନର ମୁଖ୍ୟ ପୁରୋଧା, ଏବଂ ରୁଦ୍ରନାରାୟଣ ଦାସ ଯିଏ ହେଉଛନ୍ତି ମୋର ସାନ ଭାଇ, ଅତି ଏହି କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମକୁ ଆୟୋଜନ କରିଥିବାରୁ, ଏବଂ ପ୍ରଥମ ଥର ପାଇଁ ଇତିହାସ ଏବଂ ରାଜନୀତି ବିଭାଗ ଆନୁକୂଲ୍ୟରେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସେମିନାର ଆୟୋଜନ କରାଯାଇଛି ତାହା ଅତ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଏଇଥିପାଇଁ ଯେ ଆଗରୁ କୁହାଯାଉଥିଲା ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଇଜ ଦ ରୁଟ୍, ପଲିଟିକାଲ ସାଇନ୍ସ ଇଜ ଦ ଫ୍ରୁଟ୍, ଏବଂ ସମୟ ଥିଲା ଦୀର୍ଘ 15-20 ବର୍ଷ ତଳେ ଏଇ ଦୁଇଟି ସବଜେକ୍ଟକୁ ଇତିହାସ ରୟାଲ ସବଜେକ୍ଟ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଉଥିଲା ଏବଂ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସ୍ଥିତିରେ ଏଇ ସବଜେକ୍ଟ ଆସ୍ତେ ଆସ୍ତେ ତାର ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ କମି ଯାଉଛି। ତେଣୁ ସେଇ ଦୃଷ୍ଟିକୋଣରୁ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ସେମିନାର ଆୟୋଜନ କରାଯାଇଛି, ତେଣୁ ସେଇ ସେମିନାର ନିଶ୍ଚିତ ଭାବରେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଏକ ଅତ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ। ତେଣୁ ମୋର କହିବାର ତାତ୍ପର୍ଯ୍ୟ ହେଉଛି ଏଇ ବିଷୟବସ୍ତୁ ଉପରେ ଯେହେତୁ ଜଣେ ଇତିହାସର ଅଧ୍ୟାପକ, ଜଣେ ଇତିହାସର ଗବେଷକ, ଜଣେ ଇତିହାସର ସଂଗଠନ ହିସାବରେ ଇତିହାସର ସ୍ଥିତି, ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନର ସ୍ଥିତି, ତାର ଭବିଷ୍ୟତ ଏବଂ ତାର ସମସ୍ୟା ଉପରେ ମୁଁ କିଛି ଆଲୋକପାତ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଚାହୁଁଛି। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସମୟରେ ଇତିହାସ ଯୋଉ ବିଷୟବସ୍ତୁ ସେଥିରେ there is the qualitative and quantitative decline of enrollment of history. ଇତିହାସ କୁ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଅଧିକାଂଶ ସମୟରେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି history has no future, some said history is a dying subject and most of the people are reluctant to take history. ତ ଏହି ପରିପ୍ରେକ୍ଷୀରେ ତାର କହିବାର କଥା ହେଉଛି ଯେ history as a subject losing strength and credibility in the colleges and universities. To a common man, history is nothing but a biased records of the past to suit the needs either for glorification or condemnation or consolidation of ideological position. To them, history is a poetic imagination, story told by the generations, a ladder to rise to power and to create a rift in the social fabric. History is no more scientific, objective, secular, and democratic. So, history is just like playing a game of a treasure hunt. There are clues hidden in all kinds of places, and when you find one clue, it leads to the next. And slowly, step by step, you arrive at this treasure. In this case, treasure is an understanding of what went on in this world, and clues are evidences. But my point is that the writing of history is of two types. First, collection of data, and second is the interpretations. The collection of data is objective and the interpretation is subjective. So, ये जो subjective जो interpretation, ए interpretation रे अधिकांश गला बाट अछि, जहाँ द्वारा कि इतिहासर सत्यता को विभिन्न रूप रे, विभिन्न ढंग रे, विभिन्न प्रकार रे विवेचना करा होछि, जहाँ द्वारा कि इतिहासर सत्यता क्षीण होछि एवं इतिहास आस्ते आस्ते तार गुरुत्व हरउछि। एवं इतिहास जो लेखा ता होछि मुख्यतः जो चैलेंज आछि, से चैलेंज ता मुख्यतः दुई प्रकार आछि, चैलेंजेस विद इन आम ऐतिहासिक मानक मध्यरु एवं चैलेंजेस विदाउट एवं बाह्य इंटरनल गोटे एवं एक्सटर्नल गोटे, एवं जो आभ्यंतरण जो ऐतिहासिक मानक मध्य जो विवाद बा जो सृष्टि होछि तिक्तता, तार मुख्य कारण होछि जे देयर वाज पार्शियलिटी, देयर वाज बायस and there was the personality cult, glorification of individuals for writing history. तो इतिहास जो ढंग रे लिखा होची, जो प्रकार लिखा होची, जो प्रकार रे विवेचना करा होची, से ताहाकू समाज रे अधिकांश व्यक्ति अधिकांश लोक ताकू ग्रहण करिया पय वर्तमान समय रे प्रस्तुत नुहंती. फॉर एग्जांपल जे we read in history Alexander as the great. इतिहास रे हमें अलेक्जेंडर को श्रेष्ठ बोली विवेचना करा होची, किंतु the Alexander who destroyed the state of thieves by killing 6,000 thieves, and he was a conqueror. And similarly या पूर्वरु मोर बंधु डॉक्टर हरिहर पंडा मध्य कहउतले अशोक ऊपर आमे कहउछु अशोक द ग्रेट इन हिस्ट्री. we read in history अशोक द ग्रेट. इतिहास रे हमें अशोक श्रेष्ठ बोली पढुचे, किंतु अशोक who killed 99 of his brothers to become the king, and also in the Kalinga war he also killed number of Kalingan people. जणे हत्याकारी लुंठनकारी को आम इतिहास रे तांको अशोक द श्रेष्ठ बोली विवेचना करू. हमरा तो उदाहरण दिया जाए, अनेक उदाहरण दिया जाए.
लॉकडाउन बंद है लगी तार द्वार जीवन देखि समस्त मना है तब भी है सत्य समस्त का नोटिस हितंदा लोक क्लेम करथंदे एनएससी सब सब जो नाही सोड नाही अननेसेसरी हेछि ना ताके ताको ट्रेन यूज करतोली कि हम यूज
म्यूट कर दियो आपन को
पछपट रास्ता रे ओडिया गदा रास्ता का नाही पाखा हाँ देखो समस्त ना समस्त ड्रेनेज पड़ती टैक्स पड़ती इलेक्ट्रिक पड़ती.
हाँ बारिक सर स्टार्ट करो. सॉरी फॉर द इंटरप्शन सर. Hello, Professor Subas Barik, please continue. Please unmute yourself and continue. Requesting all the participants, please maintain the decorum. Please don't unmute yourself.
Hello.
Okay.
Internet problem. Rudra, internet problem.
Sir, there is someone unmuting, and there is a interruption. So please start.
It is audible.
Yes, sir.
Oh, now is there any problem to tell me?
No, sir, no problems.
Okay, okay. No, I am just telling English रे कहबी ना ओडिया रे कहबी असुविधा होची की?
नहीं सर किछ असुविधा न कहू सर.
अच्छा.
जानी पारि नाहंती अनम्यूट कर देछन सेति पे इंटरप्शन हे गला.
मो तो 15 मिनट 20 मिनट कथा हो.
आज्ञा सर.
से बेले जदि भारत वर्ष रे इतिहास को हम विवेचना करिया, भारत वर्ष रे इतिहास रे इंग्रेज मानकर सृष्टि जो इंग्रेज हेलो
कोन सर कोन
से बेले जदि भारत वर्ष रे इतिहास को हम विवेचना करिया, इंग्रेज मानकर लेखा जातला जे इंग्रेज मानक जेम्स मिल द्वारा सृष्टि जे हिंदू पीरियड मुस्लिम पीरियड ब्रिटिश पीरियड एवं से कॉन्सेप्ट को से आइडिया को एवं मध्य आमे ताको प्रचलन करछन्ती एवं ता क्षेत्र कोन से आमे नूतनत्व चिंता करूनांती. तो एई बळे इतिहास को जो हमर पूर्व पुरुष माने जो बळी भाबरे लेखा जायछि जो बळी भाबे विवेचना करछन्ती तार पुनर्लिखन नियति आवश्यक एवं से बळी आवश्यकता पूर्ण करिया पय आम मान मध्य रे से बळी चिंताधारा सृष्टि हेबा उचित. Nowadays this is the age of science and technology. एवं there are the technological revolution and that's why history should be changed. एवं जो इतिहास लिखा जाइतला नुआ नुआ उद्भावन फल नुआ नुआ चिंताधारा फल इतिहास पुनर्विकसित हवा उचित नुआ ढांचारे नुआ परिप्रेक्षी रे इतिहास लिखा जा उचित यदि विश्व इतिहास रे गोटे उदाहरण दिया जाए जे 1799 ख्रीष्टाब्द रे जेतेबेले रोसेटा स्टोन उद्भावन कराला जने पैलियोग्राफर चैंपलियन द्वारा सेतेबेले फ्रांस रे इतिहास रे एक विराट परिवर्तन आसिला तेणु से जो परिवर्तन आसिला तेणु आस्ते आस्ते नूतन चिंताधारा सृष्टि द्वारा परिवर्तन हवाटा स्वाभाविक यदि ओडिशा परिप्रेक्षी रे आमे विवेचना करा जिवो तो ओडिशा रे मुख्यतः केते गुडे गुरुत्वपूर्ण जिनस रही जारी उपरे ऐतिहासिक गवेषणा खूब कम है ओडिशा होची मुख्यतः ओडिशा हैज रिचेस्ट ट्रेजर ऑफ इंस्क्रिप्शंस ओडिशा रे अति प्रचुर मात्रा रे ट्रेजर इंस्क्रिप्शन रही द्वितीय ओडिशा रे लार्ज ट्राइबल पॉपुलेशन रही एवं ओडिशा रे जो रेशियल कल्चरल एडमिक्सचर जो संस्था अच्छी जो जाति अच्छी सेमान रही तेणु यही प्रकार जो ओडिशा जो गवेषणा चली ओडिशा गवेषणा ए क्षेत्र में अति मात्रा उन्नत स्तर को जापरि ना एवं धन्यवाद देवी विक्रम केसरी जन को जे कि ट्राइबल स्टडीज उपरे कार्ड तैयारी करछन्ती एवं आदिवासी मानकर रिसर्च पई काम करिया पई आगे आछन्ती एवं धन्यवाद मध्य से कुआपाल कॉलेज रो समस्त कर्मकर्ता को जो माने कि एई बळी एक रिसर्च अवेयरनेस तैयारी करिया पई प्रयास करछन्ती एवं तांकर प्रयास ठीक राइट डायरेक्शन रे बा राइट पर्सपेक्टिव रे चली अछि तो आ गोटे मोर कहबार कथा होची जे यार सॉल्यूशन को ए जो वर्तमान जो युवा पीढ़ी दीटा जिन सृष्टि होची द फर्स्ट स्टेप वाज वन शुड गिव प्रायोरिटी टू टीचिंग वर्तमान जो इतिहास पाठपढ़ा होची पाठपढ़ार ठीक to give priority on teaching rather than research and creating a phalanx of good teachers in the subject. तो विषय वस्तु इतिहास विषय वस्तु उपरे ठीक संख्याधिक ठीक अध्यापक वर्तमान समय रे तैयारी करा जाय पारु नाही एवं जा पर कि इतिहास बाट बणा होछि तो इतिहास रो जो पाठ पढ़ा ठीक अध्यापक तैयारी करा जाउने एवं जो माने सीनियर आस्ते आस्ते कॉलेज गुड़ा से अध्यापक अध्यक्ष होती विभिन्न दायित्व रोचंती तो डाइवर्ट फ्रॉम एजुकेशन टीचिंग सब्जेक्ट ऑफ टीचिंग हिस्ट्री टू अदर फील्ड्स तो सेमानकर आ इतिहास संपर्क रे कम ध्यान दउचंती जहा पर कि युवा पीढ़ी ताको मध्य ग्रहण करना एवं जो युवा पीढ़ी वर्तमान अछंती दे होचंती कट एंड पेस्ट जो पीएचडी होची बा जो रिसर्च काम करचंती सेमाने चाहते शॉर्टकट वेज टू गेट द पीएचडी एवं शॉर्टकट वेज समस्त खोजते जहाँ पर कि जो सब्जेक्ट जो रॉयल सब्जेक्ट आस्ते आस्ते थिला से सब्जेक्ट आस्ते आस्ते तार गुरुत्व हरउछि एवं तार कारण होछि जे वर्तमान समय रे जो राज्य सरकार जो मानसिकता अछि ए सब्जेक्ट प्रति अति मात्रा रे कलुषित कराउछि तार कारण होछि गोटे गोटे महाविद्यालय रे 5 प्रकार अध्यापक अच्छा जे यूजीसी पाउची 1.5 लाख समान क्लास करछन्ते जे यूजीसी पाउची 1.5 लाख पाउची के स्टेट स्केल पाउची लखे पाउची के ब्लॉक ग्रांट पाउची के एसएससी पाउची तो एई प्रकार जो शिक्षार व्यवस्था ही इतिहास बा सोशल साइंस बा जे कोनसी विषय रे तार रिसर्च को अति मात्रा रे कदर्य करछि तो मोर कहबार कथा होची जे हिस्ट्री इज सैक्रेड डोंट डिस्टर्ब इट with ulterior motives एवं आ गोटे रिक्वेस्ट होची they don't make any statement on historical topics without proper knowledge about history and its methods of research. Mostly the politicians must refrain from making their unwarranted comments on historical topics. Their work is to lead the people in a just way, not to write history. एवं इतिहास जो सब्जेक्ट अति पवित्र से विषय को अति मात्रा रे कलुषित कराउछि अति मात्रा विकृत कराउची एवं जहाँ फल कि अति मात्रा समस्या सृष्टि होची एवं सबुठ गुरुत्वपूर्ण घटना होची द स्टडी ऑफ हिस्ट्री इज गोइंग थ्रू ए वेरी डिफिकल्ट फेज तार कारण होची दिस इज द एज ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी एवं वर्तमान एज ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी इन द ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी the people are searching for jobs in technocrats or engineers or other subjects and nobody is interested for this subject philosophy that is history and that's why we should work together the young scholars should come out we should work together hard from grassroots level from the top to bottom all should work hard to make history to return history its glory what once it is a royal subject this subject should return to its old glory and that's why we should work hard एवं एई भली एक स्थिति रे इतिहास संपर्क रे प्रथम होची जे भल अध्यापक मान को तैयारी करा जिवो जो अध्यापक माने कि संपूर्ण कार्य करिवे इतिहास ऊपर एवं द्वितीय होची जो माने बलिष्ठ रहिले से माने प्रत्यक्ष विषय रे गाइड करिवे एवं एवं जो कार्य गुड़ करा जाउची इतिहास संपर्क रे से संपर्क रे रुचि रखिबे एवं आगो को कार्य करिया पे ए सब विषय वस्तु को आगे ना पे चिंता करिवे समाज साहित्य सांबादिक ए मान को सब्जेक्ट ऊपर विशेष मात्रा गुरुत्व दिया जाय कथा एवं जो कथा होची इतिहास लेखा जाय ना लिखि निया जाय किछि अधिकांश लोकंकर धारणा जे इतिहास लेखा जाय ने लिखि निया जाय तार अर्थ होची अधिकांश युक्त करछन्ती जे इतिहास ता ठीक बाटरे लेखा जाउने जहा फल कि ऐतिहासिक माने ठीक कार्य उपस्थापन करनथुआरु जहा फल कि अन्न नॉन हिस्ट्रियन जो माने पॉलिटिकल लोक होंतु इकोनॉमिस्ट होंतु सांबादिक होंतु अन्न माने हस्तक्षेप करछन्ती एवं साहित्य को कलुषित करछन्ती तेणु साहित्य को कलुषित बंचाइया पे साहित्य को ठीक दिग्दर्शन देवा पे अध्यापक माने ठीक रूपे कार्य करा उचित एवं सेमानकर कार्यप्रणाली समस्त द्वारा सठिक मार्ग रे जीवा उचित सत्य उपर आधारित हवा उचित जहाँ हरिपंडा कहते कलिंग युद्ध रे जो राजा कथा कहते किए थिले बोली जो थिले तो से प्रकार आलोचना रे सठिक मार्ग रे जीवा उचित एंड लास्टली द हिस्ट्री रिसर्च शुड बी बेस्ड ऑन एक्यूरेसी एंड फैक्चुअल डिटेल there should be reasonable completeness of evidence there should be logical structure and clarity and there should be the polish of presentation तो यही प्रकार निर्दिष्ट आधार रखी कार्य करबा उचित एवं इतिहास आगो बढ़िबो एवं इतिहास भविष्य दिने दिने उज्जवल हबो एवं जो मान कहउचंदी जे सनसेट सब्जेक्ट कारण सनसेट नथिले सनराइज रो कोनोसी गुरुत्व न थाए तेबणी सनराइज रो गुरुत्व को उपलब्धि करिया पे हेले दिना दिने तेणु इतिहास को से भली ठीक दिगरे सेही भली ठीक मार्ग रे आगे न पे समस्त को मोर अनुरोध एवं इतिहास ओडिशा इतिहास कांग्रेस रो साधारण संपादक हिसाब रे मु समस्त को बिंद अनुरोध जे इतिहास जो सब्जेक्ट को जो माने कलुषित करतुंती तांको हेदुत्स मान को बंद करिया पे सत्य पर आधारित घटना ऊपर रिसर्च को गवेषणा करंतु आगे की चली जांतु एवं इतिहास को ठीक दिगंत रे नियंतु धन्यवाद धन्यवाद
Thank you so much, Dr. Barik, for your wonderful deliberation of the relevance of history and how history is going down in the rural and also urban colleges in our state. You are focusing on every aspect. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I would like to invite Professor Bikrarm Mohapatro to initiate his talk. Over to you, Professor Mohapatro.
Warm greetings and hearty welcome to the learned participants, resourceful speakers, organizers, and scholars, participants, and our listeners. Congratulations to all to this 104th session of webinar initiated by the Jain College, Kuapa. It has been a great privilege on my part to be a part of this Jnana Yajna. Really, it is an inspiring session. Today I will express my views in brief, as the time is very short and the topic is very lengthy. You have listened to our guests. Really, Subas bhai had expressed his views very brilliantly. What the problems we are facing now in studying history. Nowadays, people thought that history is an unproductive subject. In a land like India, if we think in that light, if our government, the bureaucrats, they will think that health and education, they are unproductive. Only those subjects which can earn money, that are productive. This is a very wrong concept and Western concept. If we look into the things from Indian perspectives, what our Puranas, what our great ancestors that taught us, and our Indian culture, what are the values, essence of our culture, for which we sustained. In the pages of history, we will see a number of civilizations, they rose and they demolished. But Indian culture is sustaining till date because of its heritage, because of its moral values, because we are the successors of this land. And history is very important. In each and every year, in each and every age, there is the importance of history. In the Atharva Veda, in the Rig Veda, in the scriptures, in the Puranas, Mahabharata and Ramayana, there is the use of the term Itihasa. Again and again, in the scriptures, we will see there is the use of word, the term Itihasa. History cannot forgive you for your acts that was repeatedly used in our Mahabharata and Ramayana. Therefore, the relevance of history is always there. History links the past with the present and leads the future of a nation. History is the coordination between time and space. History prepares the successors through the glorious deeds of its predecessors. But what happened to Swami Vivekananda? Only that nation can only dream of a prosperous future which had a glorious past. And the present generation can help the paucity of the past. History always plays an important role in making the future of a prosperous nation. We the Indians, we had a glorious past, but the agony is that the history which has been presented before us, that is not the true aspect of history. If we look into the writing of Indian history, history of the writing of Indian history, then Indian history writing was first of all started by the German and British scholars, being initiated by the Christian missionaries. You look at the time, in the beginning of the British rule, advent of the Europeans in India, the German and British scholars, like J.S. Mill, William Hunter, they tried to write the history of India. And J.S. Mill was the first man to prepare the history of India. And in the preface of his book, he had admitted that I had never been to India. I don't know any Indian language, but he had written the history of India. Therefore, you see, without knowing Sanskrit, without reading Sanskrit, without proper explanation of Sanskrit, how could one write the ancient history of India? Therefore, a wrong concept went on for centuries. And if we estimate our history, then we could found several schools of historians. In the primary stage, in the first stage of English education, during the time of Warren Hastings, first writing of history was started. Asiatic Society, Royal Asiatic Society, they were founded to work on research on the history of India. And they had a concept to look into India as a slavery country. Their perception was not clear. They had a colonial attitude. They represented Indian history in that angle. They focused on Indian society. They had focused their only intention was how to sustain the British rule for long in India. And the missionaries, their aim was to criticize Indian religion, Indian way of life. To them, they just described Indian religion as the religion of snake charmers. Indian religion was full of blind beliefs, superstitions, dogmas. They represented Indian society as orthodox, as divided, as illiterate, and so on and so forth. Likewise, politically, we were presented as a defeated race, disintegrated race. Therefore, the picture of India, which was reflected in the history of colonial writers, that was how to degrade India and to maintain British rule for a long in India. But we will be thankful to the great reformers of India of that time, Raja Raman Rai, Dayananda Saraswati, Swami Vivekananda, Ani Besant, and many known and unknown others who had worked on the Vedas, who had represented India in the proper way, and a great war of independence was started. And Indian War of Independence, that was fought both violently, non-violently, socially, and spiritually. And after a long fight, India achieved independence. And after independence, the writing of history, that was also in danger. Those who wrote history, they were preoccupied. They had preoccupied the concept and several groups of historians, they were created in India. The colonial historians, they put forth Indian history in their angle without Indian vision. The leftist historians, they had a separate angle. The nationalist historians, they tried to put forth Indian history in their angle, and towards this late 70s and 80s, the subaltern school of history that emerged. They focused on the social history, history from low, history from below, what the contribution was of the common people in making the history of India. In this way, various schools of history, historians, they worked with their motivation. Therefore, our history has been distorted in many ways. Today's historians, they chiefly depend upon secondary sources. What the European historians, they commented. We chiefly depended upon secondary sources without going in detail to the primary sources plentifully available everywhere, in archaeology, in literature, in Puranas, in regional literature, in our folk literature, folk tradition, everywhere. There are ample sources of history to reconstruct the future history of India. Now, therefore, it is a great challenge for the historians to prepare the real history of India, a glorified history of India. What great days we had then and there. How democratic spirit was there in ancient India in the Vedic, since the Vedic period. While the dawn of civilization was not there, at that time, with the Indians, we had a great civilization like Harappa and many others. We are not looking into our Puranas, which are the stored gems of historical sources. Therefore, now, we, the students of history, we should think seriously how to represent, how to prepare a history of our nation. We have a number of glasses in our eyes, like subaltern, social, national historians, leftist, Marxist, and many others. But simply, we should be historian. A historian should not have any preoccupied mind. To find out the truth, a historian is just like a torch bearer to show the real path to the future generation. We will be observing the 75th year of our independence. But we have no real history before us. What should be the future of India? What was the past of India? And what is the present of India? Therefore, through writing a proper history, reconstructing a proper history, we should link past with the present and prepare the future generation for a prosperous and glorious India. And history is always important. And while thinking of history, while researching history, our concept should be clear, our vision should be clear. Therefore, now it is the right hour to write history with Indian vision, with Indian perspectives, with Indian resources, sources plentifully available everywhere. And I just put an example how our history has been distorted in many spheres. We described Kalidasa as Indian Shakespeare, while describing Kalidasa as Indian Shakespeare, we are not thinking Shakespeare and what is the time of Shakespeare and what is the time of Kalidas. We are not thinking while comparing Samudragupta as Indian Napoleon. What is the time of Napoleon Bonaparte and what is the time of that Samudragupta? We are not going through in detail to our Sanskrit literature. In our Sanskrit literature, Puranas, there are exaggerations, no doubt. Everybody would admit it. But out of exaggerations, we should have to find out the truth, the reality. What is the essence of that Purana? We are preparing our curriculum in our schools, in our universities, in our colleges, but we are adopting the same traditional method. What subjects are to be taught, which will inspire our future generation, that we are not thinking. The members in the Board of Studies, they should think of it. What type of subjects will inspire our future generations in making the nation prosperous? That should be taken into account. But nowadays, we are lacking many things. The government and the officials, especially the bureaucrats. What my previous speaker, Subas is telling, that the government has no initiative to prepare such a curriculum which would be prepare our generation socially, morally fit to prepare future India. That is the defect of our system. While preparing the curriculum, we should put forth those things as in the subject matter which will inspire us. While we ask anybody to represent him, to introduce him, at the time he will introduce him which he has best with him. But our history, what essence that gives? That gives that we are a defeated nation, we are a degraded nation, we have nothing else, we had nothingness. That is the essence of history. But we have a glorious history, we have a great rulers, and our curriculum is only based upon Delhi-centric. Delhi-centric history we are also only reading. But history is not only centered around Delhi, politically or socially, but we have an innumerable art and architecture structures, archaeological remains throughout the country. We are not highlighting that. Therefore, now it is high time to think of history is now considered as a unproductive subject, but history is not unproductive at all. History is always essential. History is always necessary. Therefore, to strengthen our future generation, we should prepare a proper history can reflect the glorious days of our past. The freedom movement of India has not been internationally accepted. You just think, while we read in world history, we read at the time the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the American War of Independence. If we compare Indian independent movement, it is no less important than all these three events. But our Indian independence movement has not been focused, has not been strongly presented before the international scholars, by which how we should represent ourselves in international level. Therefore, now time is very short. I will conclude here. I request all the listeners, the delegates, the researchers present here to prepare a very strong and a powerful history of our own, so that there should be a glorious future of our own. Let us, I conclude here. We will be observing our 75th year of independence. Let us prepare a strong history of our own. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Jai Jagannath.
Jai Jagannath sir, thank you so much for your wonderful deliberation on your said topic. Now, I would like to invite our last speaker, Professor Mohanty, to initiate his talk. Over to you, Professor Mohanty.
Hello. So, good
Yes,
evening.
sir.
Respected principal of the college, Professor Chakrabarti, convener, Professor Pradhan, co-convener, Professor Das, director, Dr. Bikrarm Jena, coordinator, Professor Das, and the esteemed speakers, Professor Panda, Professor Mohapatro, Professor Barik, and learned scholars who have joined with this link. And I am supposed to speak on the early state formation in Odisha. Before going to discuss the formation process of the state, first we'll study what is the definition of ancient state. In modern political theory, we say state consists of four elements: population, territory, government, and sovereignty. But if you study ancient Indian history, you find a complete state possesses bureaucracy, long-standing army, taxation system, and a demarcated boundary. And if you study Arthashastra of Kautulya, there are 7 elements of the state, like Swami, Amatya, Janapada, Kosa, Durga, Danda, Mitra. So we can say a broader aspect, a broader definition of the state is provided in the Arthashastra. So in the context of the world, we find 3 types of states. One is inchoate early state. In inchoate early state, kinship and community bonds are still very strong. There was primitive or rudimentary form of taxation, and there was no full-time specialists. So these are the typical features of inchoate state. Let us come to the second type of state, typical early state. Early state, in typical early state, kinship ties are counterbalanced by territorial concept. And there was competition for the appointment of the officials rather than the presence of hereditary officers. Then the third type of state is a transitional early state. In transitional early state, there was complete development of bureaucratic apparatus. There was the emergence of private property, and kinship influences are only marginal aspect of the government. These are the three basic types of state in the context of the world. And in the context of the world, we also find a number of theories for the formation of the state. And I have decided to speak a state in the concept, a state in the sphere of the world, state in the sphere of the India, and we can place Orissa state in a broader Indian perspective. So in the context of the world, we find a number of theories of state formation. A German sociologist, his name is Franz Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer says state emerged due to conquest. His theory is called the conquest theory. A conquest of particular area by a king led to the rise of the state. This theory was rejected by a number of historians because Oppenheimer has not taken the internal transformation into account. Then the second theory was given by Morton Fried, and Morton Fried refers to the increasing population pressure. The population migrated from one area to another area, and they formed states in different parts of the world. And there was another theory. This theory was given by Stewart. And Stewart, he has referred to the irrigation state. What is this irrigation state? For the irrigation process, there was the employment of a number of workers. And there is a need of a managerial skill. And this managerial skill led to the formation of the state. And these irrigation states developed in some of the parts of Southeast Asia. So, states emerged in different parts of the world, taking different conditions, different environments into account. As a result of which, we find different types of theories which are applicable to the different parts of the world. Let us come to India. In the Indian context, basically, we find four theories. One is unitary, second one is feudal, third one is segmentary, fourth one is integrated. So in unitary state model, all the features of the state are clearly visible, and the state formation process reached at its climax. Here I can give you the example of Nilakantha Shastri's description of the Chola state. And he describes Chola state of South India as a unitary state. Then let us come to you find some ideas of feudalism in D.T. Kosami's book. But this feudal model was widely elaborated by R.S. Sharma. And R.S. Sharma discussed this feudal model taking land grants into accounts. And in Gupta, was the last part of the Gupta, and in the post-Gupta period, lands were donated to the Brahmanas, lands were donated to the temples, lands were donated to religious institutions, and the lands were donated along with fiscal rights, along with administrative rights. And these land grants, in course of time, these lands were fragmented. That means the central kingdom was divided into so many smaller independent political potentates. There was the rise of a number of smaller kingdoms, or there was the rise of a number of feudal territories. So there was the fragmentation of the central authority, and there was the rise of certain smaller political kingdoms. So that was applied by Sharma to post-Gupta kingdoms. But here question arises whether this feudal model can be applied to Odisha, because in Odisha we find a number of land grants, particularly after 350 there was the rise of a number of sub-regional kingdoms like Matharas, Nolas, Manas, Datas, etc. And these kingdoms donated large number of land grants. So remember here, we can differ here with the view of R.S. Sharma in the context of India. R.S. Sharma refers to fragmentation. In Odisha, these land grants did not lead to fragmentation. Rather, there was the integration of a large number of territories. And in these land grants, which were donated to the Brahmanas, they acted or they legitimized the authority of the king. So in Odisha, there was no fragmentation. So we cannot say Sharma's theory of Indian federalism is applicable to the Odissan process of state formation. Then let us come to the segmentary state model. The segmentary state model was originally applied to the Alur society of East Africa. It was applied by a scholar. His name is Southall. And Southall applied this model to the Alur society of East Africa. And that model was taken by Bhubaneswar. And Bhubaneswar applied this model to the South Indian states, particularly to the Chola state of South India. And what are the typical features of this segmentary state model? Number one, there is the establishment of sovereignty. But sovereignty is not absolute everywhere. It is absolute in the center, and it is gradually diminishing towards periphery. That is, in periphery, it is called ritual sovereignty. In center, it is called absolute sovereignty. Then, second, there was the establishment of a centralized government. But there were a number of peripheral foci. There was a number of peripheral kingdoms. And here you find the kingdoms, the peripheral kingdoms are arranged pyramidally. That is called pyramidal segmentation. So the pyramidal kingdoms were found particularly towards periphery. So these are the ideas, these are the features of segmentary state model. Then the question is whether this model of Southall or Bhubaneswar can be applied to Odissan state formation? No. What is the reason? The reason is that in Odissan kingdoms we find Bhomakaras, the Somavansis. They had a number of feudatories. But in case of Bhomakaras, in case of Somavansis, there was no question of pyramidal segmentation. And these peripheral kingdoms clearly accepted the suzerainty of the central government. Even some of the feudatories, they used Bhomo era in their inscriptions. So this model cannot be applied to the Odissan process of state formation. Then let us come to the last model, the integrative model. And here, this integrative model, it was given by Harman Pulke. And Harman Pulke says there was stepwise territorial integration in the process of early Odissan state formation. What is stepwise territorial integration? There was the beginning of state formation during the time of Asoka. Then there was sub-regional state formation. Then there was regional state formation during the time of the Gangaj. Regional state formation or the regional state is at its height during the time of the Gangaj. So let us examine this model. This model is clearly applicable to Odisha, but with two modifications. Kulke has given much stress on the political aspect. He has not referred to economic transformation, number one. Number two, he was much more interested in the state formation, particularly during late ancient Odisha. He has not referred to the transformation before the rise of the Mauryan kingdom in Kalinga. So these 2 points, economic transformation and study of the changes which became conducive to the formation of the state in Odisha, can be added to Kulke's model. So with addition of these two models, we can say Kulke's theory can be applied to the early state formation process in Odisha. So here I can just give you a bit reference to the time when there was the formation of state in India. In India, state formation also took place through several steps. And for the formation of the state, it may be in the context of South India or Northern India or in Odisha. Several factors, so to say, it is called evolutionary features, can be taken into account. For the emergence of the state, it is necessary to trace the rise of the ruling class, taxation system, professional army, and a material condition in which surplus can be mobilized. A surplus production is necessary because that surplus would maintain the non-producing public authority structure. The kings, the ministers, the soldiers, they would remain at the capital. They would not go to the village for cultivation. So king would collect the taxes and salary would be paid to the officials. So a surplus production is necessary to maintain the non-producing public authority structure. One historian says, more the surplus, more developed the state. So let us proceed to the Indian context. The earliest phase of state formation can go back to the Rig Vedic period. In the Rig Vedic period, there was band or kin-based organization. You know, kinship was the basis of social structure, and a person was identified by the clan to which he belonged in the Rig Vedic period. So each band functioned under a chief, and this is called the band stage of state formation. That is the first stage. And the second stage was marked by the growth of a larger kin-based group known as a tribe. And the system can be taken as tribal chiefdom. Tribal chiefdom. And this period, the second period, lacked regular standing army and tax collection system. So there is no complete development of state in the first stage, in the second stage also. Let us come to the third stage. Third stage was marked in the first half of the first millennium BC. In some, particularly in the areas of Gangetic Basin, and the settlements in this area revealed intense agricultural activities and appearance of iron. In place of cattle rearing, there was the development of food producing economy, and this latter Vedic period also witnessed the division of society in four varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and the territorial notion appears in the latter period, and divine element was linked with the head of the state. The king possessed or king was associated with divine element. And this third stage, most of the elements, not all the elements, most of the elements appear in the third stage. So the third stage can be called as prostate. And the fourth or the final stage was marked in the middle of the first millennium BC, when latter Vedic people proceeded towards the middle Gangetic area, covering eastern part of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. This phase was characterized by the development of rich iron technology, paddy transplantation, and metallic money. And the situation became favorable for sufficient surplus production. There was regular collection of taxes. The rulers possessed regular standing army. And there was formation of complete state in the context of India in 500 BC in the middle Gangetic region. This is about the formation of state in the context of India. Let us come to the Orissan context. And in Orissan context, it is difficult to fix the exact date of early state formation. But we have to analyze the factors necessary for the state formation. And these factors interact together, which led to the formation of a state. And here we can make a discussion on development of agriculture, use of iron technology, surplus production, rise of territory, emergence of ruling authority, rise of specialized group, taxation system, regular standing army, bureaucracy, and legitimation of the ruler. So for the study of early Orissan state formation, we have to depend on excavation and on epigraphic source materials, which you can say the primary source materials. What other scholars have pointed out, that primary sources should be taken into account while analyzing the history of Odisha. So here we'll proceed to the Neolithic age for the study of agriculture. Because Neolithic tools can provide ample evidence for this cultivation. 14 types of Neolithic tools have been found. Some of them are axe, chisel, hammer, flax, muller, etc. And it is generally accepted that axe is the most popular tool, and it was used mainly in cutting trees and clearing jungles for the creation of cultivable land and habitation area. A number of tools in the shape of axe have been found from Mayurbhanj. And the excavation at Baidipur reveals the evidence of rice. It has been pointed out that the 4 things of life sustenance system of the Neolithic age, like cattle rearing, pottery making, agriculture, and making police tools, were developed at Baidipur in Mayurbhanj. From the Neolithic phase of Golbai, bone implements, both handmade and wheel-made, bone implements, and both handmade and wheel-made pottery have been found. And here, from the Osteochalcolithic phase, we can notice the arrival of a group who had knowledge on developed pottery industry, use of tools made of stone, copper, and bone, and there was the emergence of the idea of settlement. And during the Mauryan period, we get the evidence from some sites, agricultural implements. During the time of Kharabal, steps were taken for the promotion of agriculture. He re-excavated a canal, and that canal definitely increased the agricultural production. And in the agricultural production or agricultural process was accelerated by the use of iron. And here, R.S. Sharma has referred to two stages of the use of iron. In the first stage, iron objects were used for war and hunting. And in the second stage, iron objects were used for agricultural production and for creation of artisanal objects. So this second stage can transform the material life. And there was the expansion of the settled areas, particularly in different parts of India. In Odisha, iron tools in primitive form has been recovered from the Ferro-Chalcolithic phase of Godabai. Iron objects have been discovered from Gangahar minor irrigation project, from Viratgarh, from Gudabhela, from Karligad, etc. So these iron objects could enhance the agricultural production. And here, the importance of iron technology has been revealed by the statement given in a recent book by M. Simali. And M. Simali says, the origin of the state and well-stratified societies in the different parts of India cannot be dated prior to the use of iron in agricultural production. Then we have studied development of agriculture, development of iron technology, and let us study how there was the development of taxation system. One can get indirect reference to the taxation system during the time of Ashoka. Ashoka appointed a number of officers. Even Rajuka, he can be taken as a revenue settlement officer. As to the duties of the Pradeshikas, it is similar to the Pradeshtas mentioned in the Arthashastra. They supervise revenue collection in different districts. Reference to the revenue is noticed in the line 13 of the Hathigumpa inscription, where you get the exemption of land revenue. Then in Hathigumpa inscription, you also find reference to the remittance of all tithes and assesses. So here you can get another reference to the use of coins. And Kharavada spent huge amount of money for constructive purposes. You find reference to the expenditure of 3,500,000 coins for the reconstruction of Kalinga Nagari. You find expenditure of 3,800,000 coins for the building of Palace of Victory. Then you find spending of 7,500,000 coins for the construction purpose. So all this amount indicates that his treasury was full. And this also shows definitely the product, there was surplus production. And coming to the other phase, particularly after Kharavada, even Mathara inscriptions mentions two taxes, Mayo and Hiranya. Maya can be taken as a share on the produce, and Hiranya can be taken as a tax in cash. Then you find in the Nala inscriptions, there is reference to taxes as Kara and Sulka. Similarly, in the Sumandala copper plate, you find reference to Sodesa and Suparikara as the taxes. So, in the beginning, the tax system was not complicated. But towards the last part, particularly during the time of the Bhamakara, Somans, you find a complicated system of taxation structure. You find Vahidanda, Hastidanda, Balavarikara, a number of taxes. So, another factor is the rise of professional groups. Without the rise of specialized groups, without the rise of the professional groups, state cannot originate. In the caves of Khandagiri and Udayagiri, you find in the sculpture a number of figures. And these figures refer to the specialization of craft, specialization of objects. You find a bench, you find a stool, you find the depiction of the war weapons. So these things you can find in this in the sculptures of Udayagiri and Khandagiri. And there was also rise of a professional army. What your Prof. Panda has already pointed out, the statement of Pliny, there is a clear reference to the army of Kalinga. So these are the basic evolutionary features for the rise of the state in Odisha. Study the steps of state formation in Odisha. So before Ashoka, there was internal transformation of the society. And with Ashoka's conquest of Kalinga, you can say Kalinga during the time of Ashoka refers mainly to the coastal belt of Odisha. And during the time of Ashoka, Kalinga, or after Ashoka's conquest, Kalinga formed one of the provinces of Ashoka. So Kalinga's sovereignty was rested at the hands of Magadha because it was under Magadhan hegemony. So Kalinga, as a separate state, lacked its sovereignty. But this Ashoka's conquest of Kalinga helped in the process of state formation. How? Here I can give you the statement given by Sidoni scholar Sudarshan Seneviratne. He has written an article, Secondary State Formation in Kalinga and Andhra Pradesh. And he says, when Kalinga was under Magadhan hegemony, the local officers of Kalinga were acquainted with the administrative apparatus of Magadha, by which they were acquainted or they became well versed in the affairs of state and administration. That is a statement given by Seneviratne. So Seneviratne says, Ashoka's conquest of Kalinga accelerated the process of state formation in Odisha. And the evolution, there was further evolution of state during the time of Karavala. And Karavala assumed the title Kalinga Adhipati. He is described in the inscription as Chakodhara Gutachaka Pavotachaka, which means he was the upholder of law, protector of law, and executor of law. So again, state formation process moved ahead. And then Karavala appointed a number of officers like Mahamara, Kamma, Chulakamma, Adamulika. So number of officers were appointed during the time of Kharapar. So there was the first step is that there was early state formation process under Asoka and Kharapar. And after 350 AD, there was the rise of a number of sub-regional kingdoms like Matharas, Nolas, Manas, Dattas, Sharadbhavas, etc. And this phase is called the phase of sub-regional state formation in Odisha. And already there was the rise of professional army, because in Hathikumpa inscription there is reference to Hoya, Gojo, Noro, Radha, Baulam, which indicates the different branches of Kharagana's army. And these sub-regional kingdoms now arose in the different pockets of Odisha. And in these sub-regional kingdoms, there was state formation, particularly in some parts of Odisha. Matharas formed their sub-regional kingdom in southern part of Odisha. Nolas, they formed their sub-regional kingdom in Koraput, Kolahandi, and Bastar region. So there was the formation of states in different parts. There was the formation of states in different parts of Odisha. And in one inscription, in this Sumandala copper plate, you can find what one reference which clearly indicates the term Rashtra. It is mentioned that Kalinga Rashtram Anusasati Sri Prithvi Vigraha. Kalinga Rashtram, that means Kalinga state. There is clear reference to Kalinga state. And here there was the clear formation of state in different pockets of Odisha. And one further step was taken by the Bhomakaras. And you know, the Bhomakaras started their rule from the Jajpur region. In the initial stage, they were ruling over northern delta Mohanty and delta Brahmani. But in course of time, they integrated various regions to their original kingdom. And their kingdoms included Midnapur area, Uttara Toshan, Dakhina Toshan, and Kangoda. So you can say the first phase of integration. So integration of Uttara Toshan, Dakhina Toshan, and Kangoda. And these Bhomakaras is like feudatory areas like Jamavarta Mandala, Vairabhata Mandala, Khinjali Mandala, etc. Then the next step of territorial integration took place during the time of the Somamansis. And the earliest copper plate of Somamansi was the Gopalpur plate of Mahabhabagupta Janamejaya I of regnal year 1. And these copper plate states that Janamejaya I ruled over Sonpur and Binika. And from Sonpur and Binika, the Somamansis came to the coastal belt of Odisha. There is one copper plate. That copper plate is called Jate Singha Dumuri copper plate, or it is also called Maranja Mura Chakar. Jate Singha Dumuri copper plate. It is mentioned that Jajati II was the ruler of Kalinga, Kangoda, Utkala, and Kosala. So 4 areas, 4 regions of Odisha, Kalinga, Kangoda, Utkala, Kosala, they were amalgamated. So there was clear formation of a regional state during the time of Somamansis or during the time of Jawati II. Let us come to how this regional kingdom restarted. And Chodaganga, originally he ruled over Visakhapatnam, Srikakulam, and some areas of Ganjam district. And Chodaganga, he conquered Utkala region, and there was amalgamation of Srikakulam, Visakhapatnam, Ganjam with this coastal belt of Odisha. And during the time of Chodaganga, there was also the expansion of Orissan kingdom up to Midnapur. What was the situation during the time of Chodaganga? Particularly the western belt was not included in his kingdom. And the western part was occupied by Ananga Bhimadeva III. And there was the formation of a complete Orissan state. But the last question which I want to raise here, we have in the beginning, I have told you there was a legitimation process. And Chodaganga, when he came to Odisha, his original religion was not Vaishnavism. His original religion was Shaivism, and he was a worshipper of Gokarneswar Shiva. And after coming to Odisha, during his time, there was the construction of Jagannath temple. And he constructed Jagannath temple, he legitimized his authority. And there was the beginning of legitimation process. And in course of time, toward the last part, you find the kings, they were called Rautas, or deputies of Lord Jagannath. So we can say there was the early state formation during the time of Asoka and Kharavada. And before Asoka, there was a pre-state internal transformation. And Asoka Kharavada started the early state formation in Odisha. And after Kharavada, there was sub-regional state formation. And regional state formation was made by the Somamansis, and regional kingdom reached at its height during the time of the imperial Gangas. So thank you for giving me a present hearing. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful deliberation on the history of Odisha. Now we have a question for you, Professor Mohanty. Sir, SK Imran is asking to Professor Mohanty.
Yes, no problem. Yes.
Sir, he's writing in the chat box. Does any practical thinking is applicable in the ancient sculptures, and everyone has their own visualization? Then how a single visualization is printed in the books?
No. You cannot find a single. Yes, does any practical thinking is applicable in the ancient sculptures? You are referring to sculptures. You are referring to sculptures. Or what? You are referring
yes,
to
sir.
sculptural representations. So I have,
Yes,
Imran,
sir.
you are referring to sculptural representations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have referred to sculptural representations, particularly of Khandagiri and Udaygiri. Why? The reason is that in Khandagiri and Udaygiri sculptures, there are certain objects which are depicted. And these objects refer to specialization in art and craft. You find one bench. You find one bed sheet. You find one particular weapon. So you can say weapons, carpentry. So there are rise of a specialized groups which could create these materials. So from sculptures, let us come to the society. When we say there was the use of weapons, say sword. So sword was there in the army, and this sword was not made by the people of all the sections. There was the rise of a specialized group who could make swords. So similarly, there was the rise of specific groups which could fulfill the aspirations of the people. So my point is, there was the proliferation of art and craft that we can know from cultural representations. We can know from the findings, from the excavations. We find pottery. We find one gold coin from Shishupalgarh. We find iron objects. So these objects were prepared by specific groups. So this cultural representation can indicate the rise of professional groups in Kalinga. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is for Professor Subas Barik. Sir, can
Yes,
you hear
yes,
me?
Subas.
Sir, Professor Subas Barik, sir.
Subas.
Okay, audible?
Yes, Subas,
Yes.
is my friend. Okay, Subas.
Yes.
Rudra
Sir, the
asks.
question is from sir, question is from Namrata Biswal, specific for Professor Subas Barik. So, what is the importance of teaching aptitude? What is the importance of teaching aptitude for the development of history, and what is the right way of research for a researcher? For your question, sir, your view, sir, Professor Barik.
Okay, are you audible? It is audible?
Yes, sir.
My first point is,
Yes, sir.
in present research, there should be field study. Now, most of the research are doing in just copy and paste. There is no field study. There is no proper inquiry and analysis. Most of the people are doing research only to get their degrees, but there is no actual research in nowadays. For example, in now Odisha, there was not a historian of repute, of national repute in Odisha after Professor Manmohan Das and K.S. Behera. Why? In Odisha, we are lacking that. Sincerity, hard work, dedication, field study, and proper inquiry and research in history. That's why history, most of the people are saying that history is a sunset subject. Okay? Hello?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, there is another question for Professor Bikrarm Mohapatro, which is asked by S.K. Imran. Is
Okay.
going through the question. Please wait a second, sir. Sir, please react on S.K. Imran's question, sir. According to the Hindutva Samaja, Vedas are around 7,000 years old, and with the technology advancement, we have forgotten our own history, and we know that Vedas contains the most important information exists. So why we forgot our history, and there are people around 1 to 100 who are actually known what it is. What is your view, sir?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Imran, for your query. No doubt, Vedas are the most ancient literature of the world, and Vedas are the store gems of information. There is polity, there is science, there is astronomy, there is physiology, there is everything in the Vedas. But till now, proper study of Vedas have not been undertaken. If Vedic studies will be partly vividly done, then many things would come into existence. And no doubt, Vedas are the most important sources of information, but we are lacking it. We have not gone through the Vedas with the proper vision. When we read Vedas with a proper vision, research Vedas with a proper vision, then many hidden things of ancient India would come into force, and that would show new path to the future generation. Okay?
Thank you, sir. So the next question is for Professor Mohanty. So the question is asked by Professor Dr. Bikram Kesari Jena. So what about mining past in ancient Odisha during the Ganga dynasty, when big Konark was constructed? Professor Mohanty.
Okay. Here actually he has referred to the constructive part. Yes, my topic is state formation in ancient Orissa, and I can relate this state formation process with this constructive part. I have referred in Somansi period there was a Lingaraj temple. During the time of Chodaganga there was a construction of Jagannath temple. Then later on during the Ganga period there was a construction of Konark temple. How it is related with the state formation process? One thing, the constructive process requires huge amount of money, and this huge quantity of money came from the people to the treasury. So it indicates that there was complete surplus sufficient to utilize in other benevolent measures. Suppose you have nowadays when you have no surplus amount in your treasury, you go to the World Bank, you go to IMF, Indian International Monetary Fund. But this construction process during the time of the Gangas or Somansi indicate that there was a surplus production and these surplus materials were utilized in the construction processes. So you can relate state formation process with these construction measures. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the next question is for Bikrarm Mohapatro, sir. Sir, the question is asked by Dr. Bikrarm Jena. Sir, what relevant of contemporary history writing of corporate funding in 21st century globe? How you save your ideas from their capitalist approach? Professor Mohapatro.
Yes. Contemporary history writing through corporate funding in 21st century's globe, how you save your ideas from their capitalist approach? Yes. No doubt the corporate sector, there would be the funding agencies. As before the ruling class, they were the funding agencies. Nowadays, corporate sectors can fund for a study of social science. In the past, the rulers, the jamindars, the merchants, they were patronizing the scholars, the sculptors, the artisans and artists, and which are preserved now for our future generation. Likewise, if corporate sectors, they would fund for the research of social studies, then they would be very valuable for the future generation. And only money making is not the motto of life. Along with money, we should look into our art, culture, sculpture, painting, literature, history, and many things, philosophy, astronomy, and many things. Therefore, now it is the corporate sector who do come forward, and the researchers, the historians, scholars, they should not be bought by them. They may be funded by them, but they must work independently, having their independent approach with the right perspectives. Then can only real and accurate history could come into force. Corporate funding may inspire us, but we should not be swallowed by the corporate agencies. This is my view.
Thank you, sir. The last question is for Professor Subas Barik, sir. Please unmute Subas Barik, sir. The final question is for you, asked by Dr. Bikram Kesari Jana. Sir, what is your ideas to develop history for more popular to teach and take in university level?
In university level, most of the people are giving priority to research. There was a lacking of a teacher-student interaction system. जो माने छात्र माने जहाँ चाहूँचंदी शिक्षक माने ताहा पूर्ण करि पाउ नांदी. प्राइमरी सोर्स को गुरुत्व दिया जाउ नाही. सेकेंडरी सोर्स रे कार्य सब चालुची. जहाँ पर कि ओडिशा रे जो इतिहास लिखिथिले कोन ब्रिटिश एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर हिस्टोरियंस. ब्रिटिशर माने जो इतिहास लिखिचंदी समान हिस्टोरियन नोंती. समान एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर. शासन करू करू समान इतिहास लिखिले. ओडिशा रा भूगोल इतिहास ओडिशा रा भाषा संस्कृति भितरे अज्ञ थाई से माने इतिहास लिखिदेले जो इतिहास को आमे ताको अनुसरण कले आ गोटे ताको पुनर्विकसित करिकी कोनसी नूतन इतिहास एपर्यंत कोनसी कॉलेज विश्वविद्यालय इतिहास ऐतिहासिक मान द्वारा से भली लेखा जाई पारला नाही जहाँपर कि ओडिशा ऐतिहासिक माने जातीय स्तर रे से प्रकार रे कोनसी स्थान पाई पारु नांती आमे यदि सर्वभारतीय स्तर रे इतिहास स्थिति को विवेचना करिबा ऐतिहासिक मान को गणना करिबा ओडिशा रे से भली कोनसी ऐतिहासिक से भली स्थान पूर्ण करि पारि नांती एवं छात्र मानकु ऐतिहासिक माने जो माने बड़ बड़ विश्वविद्यालय रहिले से माने जो भली भाबरे तांको गाइड करिया कथा प्राइमरी सोर्स को जीवा कथा मूल भित्ति की जीवा कथा संस्कृति हला ऐतिह्य हला परंपरा हला कला हला स्थापत्य हला भास्कर्य हला आदिवासी संस्कृति हला बा हमर भौगोलिक स्थिति हला पारिभाषिक परिस्थिति हला जो इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन हला डिस्प्लेसमेंट होउची आदिवासी मानकर स्थिति कोन ताको समीक्षा करबा प्रैक्टिकल फील्ड लैकिंग जाफल कि से प्रकार गाइडेंस विश्वविद्यालय कोनसी अध्यापक माने कोनसी छात्र मानकु बा तांको गाइड मानकु बा कोनसी तांको स्कॉलर मानकु देई पाउनांती जाफल कि ओडिसा रे छात्र शिक्षक विश्वविद्यालय कर्मचारी मध्य गोटे वैक्यूम रोची गोटे गैप रोची जहाँपर कि शिक्षा आगे पारने गवेषणा आगे पारने इतिहास विकसित हो पारु नाही तेणु गोटे समय आसी एकविंश शताब्दी जो विज्ञान और कारीगरी जुग हेले मध्य समय आसी एकत्रित होई किबळी गवेषणा को आगे दिया भल शिक्षा दिया एवं समस्त मानक मध्य एक संपर्क छात्र शिक्षक संपर्क स्थापन करी आगे जीव ताहले जाके इतिहास समृद्ध हबो एवं विकसित हबो धन्यवाद
Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful deliberation and briefing on questions. Now, very good evening to all. It's my immense pleasure to go for a formal vote of thanks now. First of all, I would like to thank our esteemed guest, Professor Harihar Panda, Professor Prafula Mohanty, Professor Bikrarm Mohapatro, and Professor Subas Barik for their insightful deliberation on various dimensions of history, including history Odisha. I extend my hearty thanks to Dr. Bikram Jena, Director CARD, Chinmay Sahu, Executive Director CARD, for their friendly cooperation to organize this webinar. I would like to express my profound gratitude to our principal, Professor Chakravarti, for his cooperation in organizing this webinar. I would also like to thank the convener of this webinar, Head Department of History, Professor Sarendra Pradhan, co-convener Professor Shubham Das, coordinator Payal Agarwal and Bhaidar Das for their support and guidance to organize this event. I am also thankful and happy to express the vote of thanks to all participants, including academicians, students, media persons, civil society members who have made this webinar a grand success, by sparing their valuable time with us. Thank you all. The meeting is concluded now.
Sir, one request, sir. Bikram bhai. Sir, I am Jayanth Kumar Pradhan. Sir, in 26th December, a international level webinar will be organized by Ramana Degree College. The topic is the sources of the history of Odisha, archaeological foreign account literature. Please, to request to all, please register the name and join in this event.